Hey, how y'all doing today? So I wanted to cover some things. I uh, I use AI as part of my daily use. Uh, I've talked about it in other videos, and basically what we're doing here is we're basically taking how I interact with AI, which is I use Kolbe A, Kolbea profile, and I've known what mine is for several years now, and I've kind of gone back and forth in time, um, like using it and being aware of it. But it wasn't until I started using it with AI specifically, and I used it specifically with Claude AI. I put it in my description. Like, so all my conversations, it's really simple for me in Claude. Everything is based around my Kolbe A profile, and then the only other instruction I have is no M dashes, which we can all agree, are overused. So since it has very simple instructions on how it interacts with me, it anytime I am working on a project, whether that's in chat or in code, it's giving feedback. And when I'm in like Claude Code Terminal, for example, I build it into my systems in my Claude MD file to use my Kolbe A profile. If you're doing Claude Code Web, it taps into that process and stuff. So basically, what we're talking about today is basically how I see a problem, how I look at that problem and work through it from start to finish. And so the situation was, I am currently about 13 weeks into training. It's an 8-week training program. So is it going well? No, it's not. Uh, a lot of that I can attribute to not getting the training attention I thought I needed as someone who's coming into this industry fresh. 27 years in hospitality, coming into a whole different environment with sales, everything. It just kind of was like lackadaisical for my experience. There's other reps in the company who get way different experiences, but I don't resent it. 99% of the time, I don't resent it. Uh, but since I operate a certain way, I've had to like approach this problem of not getting the feedback or the, kind of like follow me, watch how I do it kind of training. I've had to go out there and just kind of hammer it, get punched in the face, figuratively, um, literally get the door shut in my face. But that it doesn't bother me. You had just gotta kind of go out and expect it, and you don't really get surprised by it. So I use AI, and my training has been underwhelming. So I'm 13 weeks in. I'm at 4 contracts. I don't have a 50% close rate. I like about 50% close rate. Every time I get a little bit closer, I got to 3, I struggle for a little bit, got to 4. I feel like I'm gonna struggle for less time to get to 5. And I feel like every time I'm getting closer and closer to like converting, I'm understanding what I'm doing more, and that's because I use AI and I use these systems. Um, so basically, here's what's going on. What broke was there's 2 leaks on either side of the one stage that works. I'm on our team Slack. I'm seeing other reps doing better than I am. I don't feel jealous about it, but I do feel a certain way about it when I'm seeing those reps in the field with their trainers and they're getting that feedback, they're getting that support week 1, week 2, week 3. They're just, you see it. And eventually they go on and do their own thing. The one thing that, and I say this is like the 1% that annoys me. It's like I see someone who's getting multiple appointments week 1, week 2, and I didn't even know appointments existed until like week 8. I heard it on a training call, and it just kind of came up in a conversation, and I was like, oh, this is a thing we can do. This whole time, I never knew, because this entire time, I've been on my own, figuring it out. So, pain point, whatever. So I started asking questions like, what's wrong with me? There's like, is it me? And I don't want to blame my situation, but that's what it is. What it is, right? So the problem has been I'm looking at like my conversion from door to LOI is not like everybody else's. It's lower. I put in the work to get the doors. I'm not converting at the door. And you see other people coming in and just clicking, and I'm like, what's up with that? And it's frustrating. Just like if you go to any job and like someone's just better than you, you're like, I'm good, right? I'm good, right? And you just realize, and this goes back to my football days, is like there's always someone out there who's better than you at anything. Even the best in the world are great at things, but there are things they aren't great at, right? So how can I expect myself, who's never been in sales, to kind of come into situations where people who are like natural sales people or have been doing sales come in and they're doing well right off the bat, and so it's the thief of joy, so I take it from a critical standpoint of like trying to understand how that's working. So basically I was saying like I'm only getting like one LOI for every 200 knocks, and that's kind of dependent upon who answers and how many people answer, that kind of thing. But that was kind of like my situation and like I feel like other people were getting less than that. So comparison, right? But from my experience, anybody who's answered the door and said, "Come on in," has done an LOI with me. Right? There's not someone who has gone through with it. The only time there was, I'm really not really counting my first two because I wasn't even taught how to log it. I was just told to go out there. Nothing against the company. It was just a training gap they weren't aware of. As someone who's been a trainer, I could see it, but whatever. So, other than those first two, basically anybody who I get in their door, I'm able to sign up as an LOI. And I feel like I'm really good at conveying information, understanding the process. I'm not there to scam them. I'm there to inform them about this option that they didn't know they had, and helping them understand what it is and how it can help them. And so I feel like I'm really good at that. The issue is typically when I'm going from, all right, I've signed them up. There's a couple days that go by. If they were iffy during the LOI close, where they felt like maybe the questions weren't answered enough for them, even though they signed up for it, they don't make it to the close part of the process, where basically they then initiate the application to PP&L, they initiate the process, getting into our system. And for me, it's weird because a lot of times, all the times that has happened, they didn't even wait till I got back to their house to talk about it. They just were like, they give me a call or text me like, we're just not interested. And like, you haven't even seen what you're not interested in yet. You don't even know. Like you're not on the hook for anything. Like you can still back out after seeing information like this is what your payments are going to be. This is what your how much electric you're going to be generating on your roof. These are your options. Then make a decision. And so I'm realizing that there's maybe things I'm saying in in my LOI process that aren't being conveyed effectively or aren't clicking. So it's just, introspection. So there's two problems I have that I'm seeing. One is I have a problem getting in the door, and two, staying in the process. Okay, so it's like both ends of the equation. And so those are the things I've been kind of working on these past couple of weeks, of trying to understand like where can I fix those things. So I was like, all right, AI, let's have a chat about this. So I started asking like, what's wrong with me, and just kind of reframed it into like, okay, these are the things that are happening. These are my numbers. This is what's happening. I have my knot counter. I'm tracking all these different things. Maybe I can enhance my knot counter, that kind of thing. So basically, my Colby A score is a 7 fact finder, 3 follow through, a 6 quick start, and a 4 implementer. All right. And so, as a 7 fact finder, I don't ask until I can justify asking. On the porch, I'm confirming the bill, reading the roof, finding a decision maker, pre-handling objections. All that can wait a little farther in. And sometimes that's where I can sometimes over fact find in everything I do. But also at the door, I'm looking for a reason why they're not going to sit with me. Almost like pre-qualifying them. That helps me find people who want to do it or have interest in doing it. But it also hurts me because then there's people who don't have the opportunity to actually learn about what's going on with this. The other part of that is my 3 follow through. And so after there's an LOI, there's no table for me to perform at. There's no way for them to connect with me and talk to me other than like call or text. And so in those days after an LOI, they're Googling things and they're talking about things and whatever. And if I didn't answer a question the way they needed it to be answered, it's kind of like their way to get an out. This is how I'm going to get out of this process. And what's funny is like a lot of these closes are the ones that I end up setting appointments for. They're the ones that eventually would back out. It's basically like I was busy or they were busy at the time I was there originally. I'd be like, I'll come back some other time. So they have time a couple days before I come back. So what I might be experiencing is basically like, since the way I'm built, I'm basically pre-qualifying people and kind of like pushing people away that a newer rep may just power through and just not pay attention to certain details. I'm just, no worries, your roof doesn't qualify, or XYZ, or you're busy right now. Don't worry about it. I'll come back some other time, and I do that, but I do come back because I operate from a concept of, we want to be part of a community. We're not just door-to-door salespeople who just show up one day and you never see us ever again, like so many door knocking companies do. We're in communities, and you might see us for a couple days, 1 week, and then a month might go by, and a couple days again, and another month goes by, and whatever. Or you might see us like every week. just kind of depends on permits and size of neighborhoods, that kind of thing. All right, so a couple things that I was working on this week was coming up with what are some actions I can take then that help me on both ends here. Basically, when I'm talking to a homeowner, getting in the door, just lowering the bar on when I ask to get in the door. When there's any kind of question or any kind of whatever, just asking like, hey, I have some information here, we can just sit down and talk about it real quick, versus me feeling like I have to answer every single question that they might have. And so since I'm asking to get in right away, I'm able to get to the table, we can sit down, we can talk about it. That's a much healthier way, I think, of approaching it versus me trying to like be knowledgeable at the door. And so like there's people who are gonna be like, absolutely not, I want to do it. You know, that's totally fine. I get it. We still have counters to that. Unless they're closing the door, then it's an obvious like, hey, have a great day. And that's fine. Don't want to talk to me, don't want to learn anything about saving money. That's your prerogative as a homeowner. I'm not going to pressure you. I'll put you in my system as don't bother, you know. The other thing I was going to work on doing was basically, before I sit down and talk to them, we build rapport. That's what we do. Just like any process. But my plan is to then ask to go get pictures now. So I'm gonna go get pictures of the house. You go grab your bill, kind of get situated a little bit more, get those investments of time in before we get into the actual presentation. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, like a give and take. And the other thing I have to just do is just have to shadow someone who's maybe a little better at it or a lot better than me at it and kind of just see what they're doing. How are they talking to someone at the door? How are they getting in through the door? That kind of thing. And then week 2 is basically like those LOIs I've signed up, I basically have to inoculate them before I leave. So basically saying, if there's anything that comes up the next day or two, just let me know. Week 2 is basically inoculating the homeowner before I leave about the experience from when I leave to when I come back. Just let them know, like, hey, I'm gonna text you right now. Then you'll have my number in your phone. You can text me, call me, let me know if you have any questions, anything I can answer for you. If you find things on Google or YouTube or wherever, you heard something from your cousin Joe about solar, just let me know, okay? Because what they may know and what they may experience may be different. You're not dealing with, if they dealt with me and they had a bad experience, okay, we could talk about that. But if they had a bad experience with another company, another rep from Texas or some other part of the country, like how is that experience possibly the same as what we're dealing with right now? So, just kind of like set that expectation, that tone of like, if you're gonna have questions, talk to someone who's actually working with you, and just text them right there and then. That way they know, like, okay, this is someone who's willing to give me their own phone number, to work through this process. That's basically what I've learned and working towards. So I'll see you next week.